Hey guys, today I wanted to make a video on Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Just talking about it. It's sort of a review, but um, I'm not gonna call it a review in the title and stuff, just because I probably will give it a numerical value, but I don't want people watching just for a numerical value or watching, thinking that it's a conventional review. It's really just going to be me talking about my experience with Iceborne. Many of you probably know that Monster Hunter World was actually my game of the year for 2018. I got into the game very late in 2018. The game came out like really early in 2018, and I didn't get to play it until very late. And I played Monster Hunter World, and I really actually wasn't a fan of it. I didn't like it when I first played it. I felt like the fights were way too long. And I didn't feel very powerful. I didn't feel like I was doing any damage. It wasn't to me like a Dark Souls where it was very difficult, but I also felt very rewarded. And I think that was just an issue with Monster Hunter games in general. The early game is rough, and then it ended up all clicking for me later. When I revisited the game a couple months later. It all clicked for me because I realized, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be weak. I'm not supposed to be powerful. It's sort of the same thing that happened to me with Dying Light. I was like, oh, it's supposed to take a long time to kill these enemies. You're supposed to feel weak. This game is going to be about that ramp in power. And at the end of the day, you are just a little human fighting, in some case, godlike beings, actual godlike, like elder dragons controlling the elements. And it is all about that ramp in power. And once that clicked for me and I really got into the gameplay loop and I got used to the fact that sometimes your hunts are going to be 20-30 minutes long when you're starting off, and that's okay. That is normal. Once I got used to that and once it clicked for me, I loved Monster Hunter World, the base game. I absolutely loved it. I put in about 500 or 600 hours. Some people I know, that's not a lot to them for a Monster Hunter game. There's some people actually out there that will be like, if you didn't put in at least 1,000 hours, you're not a Monster Hunter fan. But you have to understand that I play a lot of video games. A lot of video games. I mean, if you watch my content at all, you watch my streams, I am constantly struggling to even beat one video game because a new one comes out and I want to play that one. So a game has to be very good in order to entice me to play it through, to actually sit down and give it, the time of day, because I drop so many games these days. I think one, that is just a side effect of there's a lot of video games out, but two, a side effect of just having more expendable income and a higher ability to. Sorry, I just snapped my fingers right in the microphone. Two, it's just a byproduct of having more expendable income that I can buy more video games and play more video games. And so that's just something that comes, as you grow up. But the downside of that is that you don't have as much free time. So you really want to, put your hours into games that you thoroughly enjoy. And so to say that I put like 600 hours into Monster Hunter World is saying a lot. It was truly a phenomenal game. And my only issue with the base game was the story mode. I just didn't think that the story was very compelling at all. I also hated the multiplayer that you could, if you wanted to start off and you wanted to play with friends, which I did several times. I did it on the PC version, playing with waifu, my girlfriend. And then I also did it on the PlayStation version, playing with Black Bolt and Eddie. Those are moderators on the channel. But I did it with them as well, and it is just so annoying because you have to wait until every single person has seen the cutscene because they spent so much time on the cutscenes. They don't want you to be able to skip them, and they put your hunter into the cutscene, so they don't want your immersion breaking or something, I guess, seeing someone else's hunter in the cutscene. I don't know. They don't have any good reasoning for it, but it just is very, very clunky. So then you both have to see the cutscene. One of you has to leave your quest or just complete it and then play with the other person after they've seen the cutscene, and it's just a hassle. But those are really my only complaints, other than some of the weapon designs are quite lazy. But those are my general thoughts on Monster Hunter World. Now I want to get into actual Iceborne. 6 minutes into the video, I want to actually get into Iceborne. So my hopes were obviously high because I love Monster Hunter World so much, but at the same time, it is important to remember that Iceborne is just, at the end of the day, DLC, right? Iceborne is not a standalone game. It's not an additional game. It's not Monster Hunter World 2. It's not even really Monster Hunter World 1.5. It is a DLC. They have went on record and said that, since this is a $40 DLC, the amount of content in Iceborne is actually just as much as in Monster Hunter World. But now that it's out, I can confidently tell you that is not true at all. There is a lot of content, don't get me wrong, but you should have a lot of content if your DLC is $40. And to be fair, this isn't your standard DLC. This is kind of harkens back to the olden days of RPGs when you would get an expansion, and that expansion pack would completely change the game, oftentimes increase level caps, and give you dozens, if not hundreds, of more hours of content. This definitely harkens back to those days, and it's really nice to see, a game release a substantial expansion to the game instead of these little DLCs that are like an hour long, or even worse, a bunch of microtransactions that are just cosmetics. So let's go over everything that was added in Iceborne. There will be no spoilers in this video. I'm not going to go over specific, details of the story or anything like that. The only thing that I will say is I will be talking about stuff that has been in the trailers of Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So if you have not seen the trailers, there might be some very, very light spoilers for monsters that you're going to be ending up seeing or something like that, for the new area, for the new hub, stuff like that. So just be mindful of that. But I think most people that are interested in Iceborne have probably seen the trailers. So let's get into all of the things that were added. I'm not going to be doing this in a traditional like pros and cons. What did I like? What did I not like? Instead, I'm just going to go over every single thing that was added in Iceborne. The general areas, like, the story, the music, the weapons, the new mechanics. We're just going to go over the broad strokes here, and I'm just going to give you my impressions on them. So the first thing that I think I was most excited for is the addition of new moves. Every single weapon type, there are 14 weapon types in Monster Hunter World. All 14 of them got additional moves. And these are also conjoined with the new mechanic that was added, which is the Clutch Claw. We'll get into the Clutch Claw a little bit later, but right now let's touch on the moves. Overall, I was fairly disappointed with this. Some weapons clearly have favoritism. It's kind of always been that case, but some weapons clearly have a bit of favoritism going on because they get access to a new move that is either far more useful or far more flashy than other weapons. A great example of this is the longsword. The longsword gets this really cool new move, total weeb samurai shit, where you sheathe your sword you ready yourself, you charge it up, and then if the enemy like charges at you or something, it can work as a parry, and you draw your sword, go into this sweeping attack. It is really, really cool looking, does a lot of damage, causes your spirit gauge to start refilling. It's very cool, and it is a prime example of what a new move should be. However, not all weapons are that lucky. My main weapon, Greatsword, was not that lucky at all. The new move for the Greatsword, prepare yourself for this amazing, amazing addition, is after a vertical strike, which is your main strike, you know, after your standard Hia downward strike, you can press L2 and shoot your slinger. That's it. That's it. That is all. That is all it does. You shoot an empowered slinger shot. It is not flashy. It is not cool. It does not do a bunch of damage. Instead of shooting one rock out of your slinger, you shoot like 6 rocks out of your slinger. And it is a prime example of a terrible new move. It feels like an insult to even call it a new move. And a lot of the weapons got stuff like this where they are just very basic additions. Like, here's a new upward slash, you know? And overall, I would have liked to see some more stuff like the longsword that actually changes, you know, a lot and looks really cool. Now, I will say with the greatsword, it has a lot of utility, and it is very useful because it allows you to reposition. You can push in a direction. If you do your vertical strike and then the monster ends up dashing behind you or something, you can't, normally you would just be stuck looking this way. You can push backwards and fire your slinger burst and do a 180 and then continue on with the combo. So I'm not saying it doesn't have utility, it's not useful, but it's not flashy, it's not cool looking, it's kind of lame. So overall, the new moves, I was quite disappointed with them. I wanted to see more. It just felt like it kind of an opportunity wasted, but I understand that that's not really the focus of the expansion. Still though, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you I was a little bit disappointed in that, which brings us on to the main new addition to the combat, which is the Clutch Claw. The Clutch Claw is essentially a grapple hook that allows you to jump onto various parts of the monster, sort of similar to when you mount a monster. However, if the monster doesn't attack with that body part that you are on, it will damage you and throw you off. So it is sort of a situation where you have to know the monster, you have to know their moves, you have to know, okay, if they're going for a head slam, then I can jump onto their back legs and grapple onto or onto their tail. So the Clutch Claw in general is a really good idea. The problem with the Clutch Claw is that it's very slow, and it is necessary for the gameplay, which I think is the biggest mistake here, is that it is actually necessary to use all the time in every single fight in the game. And the reason that that's an issue is because you are adding a completely new mechanic that does not just add to the game. Instead, it completely changes the game, and it is now necessary for, you know, the players that have been playing your game for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, to learn and to master in order to do any sort of damage. And the reason why this is such a necessary skill to master with the Clutch Claw is because you can wound body parts. So you Clutch Claw onto, let's say, the head of a monster. You do a very slow, and it's not just because I use Greatsword, it is slow with every weapon. You do a very slow, semi-damaging attack onto that limb, in this case the head, and then you fall off of the monster, but their head is weakened. It will take additional damage, and it will have additional chance to crit. Now, the reason why this is necessary is because, without going into, the meta of the game or anything like that, crit chance is very, very important in the game. And the number one skill for getting critical hit chance is called weakness exploit. This makes it so previously, if you are attacking a body part that is weak, you get plus 50% critical hit chance, which is huge. Now, you only get 30% critical hit chance, and you get an additional 20% critical hit chance if that is wounded, if that part is wounded. This means that you really, if you want to be doing decent damage, which you do because enemies have massive, massive amounts of HP in Master Rank, which is the new difficulty that was added with Iceborne. All of the Iceborne content is Master Rank content. Enemies have so much HP in this mode that you have to be wounding the parts, and you have to be only attacking wounded parts. And so this creates a situation where it feels very forced, because they're adding this new mechanic, but it's something you need to use all the time in every single fight, or you are going to be doing little to no damage, which I'm not really a fan of. I am a fan for add the Clutch Claw, have it be a nice addition, but don't make it necessary and rebalance the entire game around assuming that people are going to be using it 24/7. And the other thing is, this move does do decent damage, and as a result, what you'll find if you play multiplayer is just a bunch of people clutch clawing the monster, like just jumping onto this monster. Everybody's just riding this fucking monster around, clutch clawing it, and it's just goofy looking. It's just stupid. It's goofy looking. You just see a bunch of people flying onto the monster and just riding this dude around like 24/7, and then just getting yeeted off because they don't understand how to properly utilize it. And it's just goofy, it's dumb, but I can't blame the people, because it is a situation where the game highly incentivizes you to clutch claw, so people are just looking for their chance to clutch claw, and it is just one of those things where I do like the idea of it, but I think it was poorly implemented. There's also an ability that I see practically nobody use, where you can clutch claw onto the monster's head. You can reposition the monster. Basically, you like hit him in the head, reposition him. You can make him face towards a wall, fire all of your slinger ammo at its head, and then cause it to charge forward into that wall and knock itself out. But I don't see anybody doing this at all. And for a lot of weapons, such as the Greatsword, where your new move is reliant on slinger ammo, I don't feel that it is necessary or worthwhile to use all of your slinger ammo to get one knockdown, when you can keep that slinger ammo and use it for its utility. Another addition that they've added to the combat is the idea that you can now use your slinger and your clutch claw while your weapon is out. Previously, if you wanted to use your slinger, it had to be the holstered, which if you're using a weapon like a heavy bowgun or a greatsword, that can take a long time to holster those weapons, and as a result, nobody used the slinger. But now that you can use your slinger with your weapon out, it is a wonderful addition. It actually makes it worth to pick up slinger ammo, and it makes it a lot easier to drop boulders on enemies or spikes on enemies, utilize your environment more, shoot, paratoads to stun them, or sleep toads to put them to sleep. There's just a lot more utility now, and it just feels a lot less clunky. So that's a really good change, in my opinion. Next, we have some new skills that were added. Some of these skills are quite useless. For example, there's one that boosts your damage after you are affected by an elemental blight. This is pretty useless, honestly. It's called Coalescence. It's pretty useless because, you know, if you're playing right, you shouldn't be getting lit on fire or whatever anyway. So you're basically, I don't know, maybe some mad lad will create a build where you get lit on fire or poisoned permanently just to put yourself, you know, out of being on fire to get a damage bonus, but I really doubt it. It's just a pretty useless skill. But they do also have some that are interesting, such as a set bonus that I will not talk about what it's from because it is a spoiler, but there is a set bonus that allows you to get a bunch of upgrades whenever you put a mantle on. So you can put a mantle on and then gain a bunch of skills on top of that, which is neat. There's also a set bonus that increases your elemental damage the more you attack an enemy, which is cool for weapons like Insect Glaive or Dual Blades or Bow, because those are elemental weapons and they attack quite quickly. So you can quickly ramp up your elemental damage to pretty crazy numbers. I think it goes up to like plus 150 damage, which is quite a lot. And all in all, I would say, you know, there's some skills that are good, some skills that are bad, but they really didn't add too many skills. One thing that they did do though is they made it so certain sets of armor, this is where I'm gonna talk about one monster in particular that comes to the top of my mind. He was in the trailers, so it's not really a spoiler, but just warning. Glavenus. Glavenus has been shown in the trailers. His armor set bonus is that it increases maximum might, which is a skill that when you have full stamina, you gain additional crit chance. He actually, if you have 3 set pieces of his armor, its set bonus is that it increases the cap of the skill from a maximum of 3, so 30%, to a maximum of 5, which is 50%. So that's really interesting. And there are several monsters in the game that do that. Normally you have, you know, you can put 3 levels into this skill and get this bonus, but if you have a few, you know, pieces of this armor for this monster, then it'll actually increase the cap to 4 or 5 points into that skill, which can probably lead to some nasty builds. I haven't really experimented too much with that yet, but it is interesting. On top of that, they added a new decoration slot, which is a 4 slot. Previously, we had 1 slot, 2 slot, and 3 slot. Now we have 4 slot. Unfortunately, they have went the RNG route where most of the 4 slots are simply 2 skills in 1. So it is something like expert and attack. So it'll increase your damage and it'll increase your chance to crit. And so it's essentially 2 skills for 1 decoration slot. The reason why I say unfortunately is because this kind of does mean that there's going to be an RNG grind to try and get the best, you know, the best possible decorations, which is going to have people playing for a long time because you're going to want these really overpowered decorations, but it does offer a lot of RNG, and I'm not really a fan of that in Monster Hunter. So, you know, not really a new type of skill, just a new slot that can have either 2 levels of 1 skill or 1 level of 2 skills. So it is what it is. In terms of other new things, we obviously have the new area, which is Hoarfrost Reach. This, if you've played the betas, then you will have already played at this location. It is fantastic. I love the monsters in the area, just the indigenous life, like the popos. The fact that you can ride a popo is super cute. The snow looks amazing. The graphics are fantastic. There's so many little details in the environment that Monster Hunter World has just nailed in all of its other locations that it nails in Hoarfrost Reach as well. There's a variety of different locations in Hoarfrost Reach, which is nice. It's not just snowy snow everywhere. There's some hot springs that are really nice with the sun shining in. There's some underground caverns. There's some ice caves. There's a lot of really cool locations in Hoarfrost Reach, and overall, I was pleasantly surprised with it. I thought it was just going to be, snowy snow map, which I was excited for because we don't have that in the game of base Monster Hunter World, but it surprised me. It had more locations, so that was cool. I think it is definitely up there as possibly the best location in the game. I love Ancient Forest personally. I really, really like that location. But I think it's definitely better than the desert. I think it is definitely better than Rotten Vale. Coral Highlands, though, is another one that is just beautiful, so it's kind of hard to beat that one. But yeah, all in all, I really like the new location. Which brings us to the new hub, Celiana, which is just the best. It is just the best. There's nothing that even compares to Celiana. Astera had so many issues. It was so annoying, especially on console with the long load times. It is so frustrating to go into Astera and have to be like, okay, I'm on level 1. I need to talk to the research people, and then I need to run over and talk to my botanical research dude. Oh no, I need to go to the smithy. Let me run all the way over to this elevator or walk up these long stairs and go up to the smithy. Oh no, I need to eat, so I need to go to the 3rd floor, which is the canteen. I can run over there, or I can take the lift over there. It was so annoying navigating the place. It took forever to load on console. It was just terrible. Celiana doesn't have that issue because it loads a lot faster because there's not as much stuff there. It is all very compact. You have your provisions manager here. You have your Argosy and botanical research here. You have the elder researcher guy just a little bit over here. You got your smithy here. Canteen right next to it. Everything is nice and compact and wonderful. I love it. There's absolutely zero reason to ever go to Astera again. I will never go to Astera again. It is just, there's no point. And on top of that, these geniuses also made it so the Gathering Hub, which is awesome, it's like a spa. It's like a little sauna, and you got your foot baths and stuff. It's really nice. They also made it so you can access the smithy and eat and do your provisions and do everything from the Gathering Hub as well. So that now the Gathering Hub in Celiana is just the best way to go because it loads the fastest, because there's not a lot to load. It's all just cram-packed together. You can hang out with your friends in the Gathering Hub as well, which is great. And you can access everything that you need. So it is wonderful. They saw that on PC, every single human being was using the mod that just put every single thing, the smithy and everything in the Gathering Hub in Astera, and they went, oh, why don't we do that? So they did, and props to them for that. So yeah, the new area, Hoarfrost Reach, and the new hub, Celiana, are great. They're wonderful. Big fan. Going into probably the biggest thing is the new monsters. There have been a lot of people that have spoiled monsters that are out. I'm not going to spoil any of the monsters that are out that have not been shown in trailers, but there are a lot of monsters that have not been shown in trailers, which is awesome. It is so cool to see because they showed so many monsters in trailers, and I was worried, like, okay, we've seen everything. We've seen every single monster. We have not. There are a lot of monsters in this expansion. It is absurd the amount of monsters. Sure, some of them are variations, don't get me wrong. Variations of existing. Some of them are variations of new monsters, like we've seen in trailers, right? You have Glavenus, and then you have Acidic Glavenus. But they actually do fight differently. They have different moves. They inflict different status effects. They have different armor and different weapons. So they are different. And one thing that I was really, really surprised about regarding new monsters is the fact that they actually retroactively added new moves for practically all of the old monsters as well. I was really, really surprised by this because who in Master Rank is going to be fighting a Kuliyaku, right? Probably nobody is going to be fighting a Kuliyaku. The gear isn't good. The enemy isn't fun to fight. It's just an annoying fight. However, they added new moves to the Kuliyaku for some reason. I don't know why, but they did. And it is that level of just adding stuff across the board that really makes Iceborne something special. Because somebody out there is going to fight Kuliyaku like I did. And somebody out there is going to feel like they know their moves like I did. And then all of a sudden, Kuliyaku's going to reach down for his rock. But guess what? It's not a rock. It's a fucking bomb. It is like a giant torch pod that he bashes on you and explodes. And you're like, did I just die to a Kuliyaku? What the fuck was that? It will blow your mind. And there's stuff like that for a lot of the old monsters. And it's just so cool to see, to fight these monsters that you've already fought possibly hundreds of times. And then they just throw you a curveball. And it has a new move out of nowhere. And you're like, what the hell? I thought we were only going to see new moves with the new monsters. Or the new variations. And that is not the case. It is really, really cool to see. But yeah, there's tons and tons of monsters. Some of them are really good. The one that was shown in trailers that I think is phenomenal is Namiel, a new Elder Dragon. And that fight is amazing. Like, there's no way around it. I don't really like the armor or the weapons, but the fight itself is amazing. There are so many cool mechanics in that fight that you have to learn. And it is just a really, really cool fight. Props to them for that new Elder Dragon. That is a really cool fight. And there's a lot of, interesting monsters that were added that have their own move sets. And such as, Tigrex and Barioth. Barioth, I absolutely hate fighting. Saber-tooth cat flying thing. I hate fighting that stupid monster. He's just super fast. But once you learn that once you cripple like his wing, he loses a lot of his mobility, the fight becomes a lot easier. So then it becomes a situation where you're utilizing your clutch claw to target certain parts, to weaken them, to break them. The fight becomes a lot, easier to handle. And you see a lot of stuff like that in the fights where you go into a fight and you go, this is really fucking hard. I have no idea how I'm supposed to do this. And as you learn their moves more, you realize, if I, cripple this limb, they lose this ability, which is probably their strongest ability. And that severely handicaps them, and it makes a fight a lot more palatable. Getting up to that point is difficult. Getting up to the point where you cripple that limb is difficult, but once you do it, the fight becomes a lot easier to handle. And there's a lot of stuff like that I really do appreciate. I kind of had lost in the base game. I didn't really have that in the base game anymore. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna attack them in the head, just the usual, attack them in the head. But there's a lot of situations where you are gonna get fucked up, dude. Especially because there's so many new monsters, so there's so many new moves that you do not know. It is really nice. I have to sneeze 1 second. Here, I'll mute. Sorry about that. I'm not editing this video, so I'm not editing that out, or else I normally would. Yes, I've just talked for 35 minutes. and I'm not editing any of it because that's what these videos are. They're just rambling videos, essentially. But anyway, there's so many new monsters, so many new moves, so you're going to be dying a lot, you're going to be getting hit a lot, and you have to just learn everything over again, and I love that feeling. And one thing I will say, a lot of people are upset about is that with the introduction of Master Rank, your high rank stuff is useless. All of it. Literally everything is useless. You can use your high rank armor and your high rank weapons for your first hunt or two, but after that, you're looking at, a maximum of, say you have high rank, highest level rarity armor. You have like 80 defense. If you're looking at the lowest ranking armor in Master Rank, you're looking at like 120 defense. So you're getting 40 defense across all 5 pieces of armor, right? So that's 200 additional points of defense. And trust me, you're going to need that with how much damage these guys do. So it is just really, like, a lot of people are upset about it because they're like, I spent so many hours grinding these weapons and grinding these armors, but this is what happens when expansions come out in MMOs or in any game. This is what happens. Your stuff gets, invalidated essentially. And I think most of us knew this was coming. So I on one hand, I feel bad for the dudes, but on the other hand, it's, it's about the friends we made along the way. It's about the journey, right? So I understand, but at the same time, it is so nice and so fresh to be like, wow, I've been using the same weapon for hours upon hours. It was the best weapon. Now it is utter garbage. I need to kill a great Jagras and create a great Jagras weapon. It's like, that is such a weird thing. Like, this first monster that you ever fight in the base game, you're now fighting in Master Rank, and his stuff is significantly better than what you have been using for, potentially hundreds of hours. But it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting to fight these old monsters that you never used to fight them again, see their new moves, learn their new moves, and then craft their armor and their gear, which is now significantly better than the stuff that you've been using for all of those hours. And then you go right back into this is a new monster. I hunt the new monster. You get that excitement again of, I need to run back to the smithy. I need to look at, what does this new armor look like? What do the new weapons have I unlocked, And that brings me into the new armor and the new weapons. We'll touch on the armor first. You need to understand when I say this, okay? I'm not saying this lightly. All right, prepare yourself. This is the best armor that has ever been in a video game ever. The best assortment, most varied assortment, coolest looking armor to ever be in a video game ever. I am not kidding you. Every single armor in the entire game has been redone for Master Rank and given new designs. Some more so than others, sure, but every single one has a new design, and it is amazing. There's not a single bad looking piece of armor in the game, and there is probably over 50 armors in the game. There's so many. All of them look so cool. There's some that look like straight up anime shit, and you got giant spikes coming off of you and you look like a Gundam. There's some that look like they're straight out of Lord of the Rings and you're cosplaying as Sauron. There's some that look like you are a ninja and, you got your little mask on and lightweight gear. There's just so much cool stuff. They even have like future armor. They have so much cool armor, and it is definitely the best thing about Iceborne. No doubt about it. The new monsters are great. New monster moves are great. New location is great. Nothing comes close to the armor. There's just so much. All of it looks phenomenal. I love it. I love it. Which brings us to the new weapons. which I wish I was excited about. Monster Hunter World has always had an issue with its weapons and its weapon variety, and this is no different. A lot in the base game of Monster Hunter World, you would get a lot of situations where it is just your standard bone weapon with some like feathers slapped on or some scales slapped on, but it just looks like garbage. Just looks like a bone weapon. Put some feathers on it. And unfortunately, a lot of the weapons in Iceborne get the same treatment. On top of that, the weapons that were unique, like the Nergigante weapon or the Kushala Diora or the Teostra, those Elder Dragon weapons that were very unique, when you upgrade them into Master Rank, their appearance does not change. It remains the same for most of them. And that is such a bummer, dude, because I was really excited to see the Master Rank versions of these previously cool looking weapons. How cool are they going to look now? They look the same. Big bummer there. On top of that, there's just a really weird, like, unfairness going on where you'll have one weapon. Say you'll have a hammer, and you'll have the Glavenus hammer, and it looks really cool. It's got the scales on it, and the spikes on it from Glavenus. It's got part of its tail like woven into the handle. It looks really cool. And then you get the greatsword, and it's just a bone greatsword with some scales thrown on it. And it's like, hello, Glavenus, Glavenus's tail is literally a greatsword. You could just cut off the tail, make that into a greatsword, toss a handle on it, and like people would be happy. It would be cool. It would be sick. But they didn't. They just made a bone weapon and threw some Glavenus scales on it. And it's such a bummer, dude. And it really upsets me. Like, it's so inconsistent. Like, some weapon types for some monsters are awesome looking. You know, like Glavenus. The hammer is great. Then the greatsword is ass. And it just makes no sense. It really makes no sense. I've heard the team talk previously, and they say that they want to take a more realistic approach with the weapons. And that's why, you know, the weapon design is so meh with bone weapons or ore weapons, and then just some monster parts thrown on. But I really do not buy that. I mean, why do you need to be realistic when you're fighting giant monsters? And why are some of the weapon types needing to be realistic and some of them aren't and could be crazy anime, you know, bullshittery? It makes legitimately no sense, and is a huge bummer. Because, unfortunately, like, the best weapons, the most meta weapons, end up being ugly weapons for the most part. And it's a huge bummer. And I am displeased. If you look at the previous Monster Hunter games, and you look at the weapons in those games, they're off the wall, they're batshit, they're crazy, and they're really cool. I just wish they did the same thing with all of the weapons in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. But unfortunately they don't. Some of the weapons look phenomenal. The final boss, no spoilers, but the final boss has some of the best looking weapons in the game across practically all of the weapon types, which is really cool. And it makes me happy to see. But some of the brand new enemies have no weapons for certain weapon types. Some of them are very lame and poor. So it's a bit of a downside for me personally. I just wish, I don't care if this had to come out a couple months later. If they just did completely unique designs for all of the weapons, I would have been happy. Or just use their old designs, right? We already had a Glavenus longsword. We already had Brachydios dual blades that were really cool. just use those designs over again. I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that, but unfortunately they didn't, and it is a bummer. Which leads me on to the final 2 points, which is the music and the story. I know this is a long video. I know. Nobody's watching at this point. I know. But do I care? No. Not really. Because I don't make a lot of content for the YouTube channel, so, you know, I gotta make long content, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, the new story is, just like the original story, sufficiently meh. There's not really a lot to it. There was one point in the story that was quite cool, hit me in the feels, got me really excited. Hit me in the feels doesn't really mean a lot though, because I'm a giant baby, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But all in all, the story was sufficiently meh. They tried to get me to, there's a bug. They tried to get me to care about characters that I don't really care about at all, and still don't care about at all. They try and do things with the characters and scare you into thinking, oh my god, are they gonna do this? And then they don't, because it's very predictable. So overall story, still probably the weakest note of the game, to no one's surprise. And the music, though, I could happily say it is great. It is phenomenal. I had gotten really tired of the original soundtrack. Like, I've just heard it for so many hours. Or dun da 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 na 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 na. You know the tracks, if you've played the game. And all in all, it's just so nice to get new music. That could be why I like it so much, just because it's anything that's new. But no, it's genuinely good. I really like the Hoarfrost Reach and the Celiana music. There's also some spooky and some dark music that I wasn't expecting when fighting some of the enemies. And all in all, it is good. The parts that are supposed to hit you in the feels only get even remotely close to hitting you in the feels because of the music. If it wasn't for the music, you would have legitimately no reaction to any of the stuff that they try and pull. But because they do have that phenomenal music, sometimes you might get a little tug at a heartstring or two. So the music, quite good. I am a fan. Which brings us to the end of all of the stuff that was added. All in all, I think that Iceborne sets a precedent for what DLC should be in 2019. Personally, for me, I do not think that we should get these $20 DLCs that add like an hour or two of content. I don't. I think that we should go back to the expansion model, to the huge changes that come from these giant DLC packs, that make you say, listen, maybe this is Monster Hunter World 1.5 instead of, just some throwaway expansion. The amount of content offered here is absurd. There is so much content here that if you enjoyed Monster Hunter World, there's zero reason to not pick up Monster Hunter World Iceborne. It completely validates its $40 price tag in every single measure. And all in all, I am just thoroughly pleased with it. It's not a game, so I can't give it my game of the year for 2019, but what I can say is that it is most certainly the best DLC to come out in years. Nothing at all has even come close to this, and I thoroughly recommend you to purchase it. All in all, giving a score to a DLC is strange, but I will say for a DLC, this is a 9 out of 10. They could have done better with some of the weapon design. I am not the biggest fan of their new moves that they have added, but just the sheer amount of content that is added with all of the new monsters, the new locations, completely new story, new music, new mechanics. There is all of that armor, dude. All of the armor. The armor is so good, and there's just so much of it. It would be just a disservice to the entire package if I gave anything under a 9. It is truly an A. I'm using American grading terms of it is an A, a 90%. Bada bing, bada boom, very good. Strongly recommend if you like Monster Hunter at all. If you just enjoyed the Monster Hunter World experience. One thing I will say though is that it is hard. It is very difficult. So if you have problems in Monster Hunter World, buckle up, little baby, because shit gets harder, much harder. If you thought Lunastra was bad in Monster Hunter World, or Devil Joe, or Nergigante, you are in for a rude ass awakening in Iceborne. That bitch is fucking hard. But hey, not everybody can, be in master rank. It truly is for the masters of the game. Like myself. Even though it took me over 2 hours to beat the final boss because I kept dying and each run was like 30 minutes. But anyway, for anybody that watched this far, thank you. I appreciate you. I doubt you exist, but thank you anyway. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everybody, and I will see all of you in the next video or stream Rooney. Bye-bye.